Real Estate, Money, and More, Episode 7.
You finally found it! Welcome to the show that helps thousands with real estate, money, and a whole lot more. Now here is our host, Shane Willis.
Well, hello, and welcome to Real Estate, Money, and a Whole Lot More. My name's Shane Willis, and this is the podcast for investors and entrepreneurs to get ideas and tips that can help them succeed financially and in life. It is my sincere hope that we can be a small part in helping you get to the next level.
All right, so now today we've got a special guest. I reached out through Twitter and found Miss Karen Otto. Is it Otto? Otto, cool. She's out of the Lone Star State. Texas is coming in and representing here. Now, she is a home star staging. I hate to use the term diva. Is that a possible term to use, diva?
I would not call myself a diva. I've been called a Casa Commando. Casa Commando.
Commando expert. Sure, that works too. If you have not looked at staging a home, and we're going to get into some details about that here in just a minute. I'm going to let Karen talk because this is definitely her commando area. We'll use that term. If you haven't looked at staging a home, then you haven't looked at gaining the most possible value you can get from selling your home. I know that. I've sold homes prior to them being staged and sold home staged. Every time it's staged, I've always gotten a higher price, and I know that there's around the industry that happens, and Karen will talk to you about that as well. So, Karen, to start with, tell me a little bit about you. Tell the listeners a little bit about you, how you got in the business, and then tell me about your business.
Well, thanks, Shane, for having me. I appreciate it. I started my business back in 2006. My degree is in marketing, and I was looking for something that fit my creative side and the business side, and staging happened to be something that I looked into. And as far as marketing goes, I think staging is pure and simple. At its core, it's marketing for a home, like any other product, and what better product to market than your property, usually the highest priced commodity that you're going to own and sell. And I started my business, Home Star Staging, back in 2006. It was a slow go at first because staging, in some markets, I think it's still unheard of, or they don't know they need us. They think it's too expensive. There's a lot of misconceptions about what staging does, and how much it costs. But since 2006, I've hit the ground running, learned a lot along the way. We have a local RISA chapter, which is the Real Estate Staging Association, which is an international group of home staging professionals looking to build professionalism, education, and just awareness of our industry for others. So I'm proud to say I'm in business after 8 years, and happy to be on your show to share with your listeners.
Wow, 2006. So that means you come in right at the peak, right as things were about to take a tumble.
Absolutely. In every market, it seems staging is necessary for every market, sellers or buyers market. And yes, it was a bad market in 2006.
Okay. Wow, and if I can commend some folks, if anybody's been in the real estate industry and still here, if you were in 2006 and still here in 2014, you're obviously doing something right. Tell me a little bit about your business. How do you gain clients? What do you talk with clients? Is it an initial consultation? If somebody wants to reach out to you and say, hey, come talk to me about staging a house, how's that process look?
Well, absolutely. That's a great question. My first client actually is the realtors. My client base is based on realtors who actually offer the initial consultation to their sellers as part of a listing package. However, I do work with home sellers as well, but ideally my first client is an agent who understands the value to bring to their client. Over the years, I've been educating others. I've been preaching my message, and whether I do it, a home seller does it, or a realtor or a neighbor helps them do it, it needs to be done at the front end of a home sale. So from web presence to teaching in-house at realtor offices, I teach a local 8-hour course at Corcoran College in Plano, Texas, to home sellers and anyone that wants to know how to do it. So I've kind of gotten the reputation of being the stageucator. I'm willing to share what I know. Stageucator, yeah, somebody who shares and educates others on the process of staging.
Okay. I'm going to write that term. I'm going to use that term. We are now going to call her the stageucator. But just don't call her a diva. She's not allowed to be called a diva.
No, never a diva.
Stageucator. Okay. 8 hours worth of... Now, forgive me, and you're just going to have to exploit my ignorance here. 8 hours worth of training on staging seems like a whole lot. Now, I come from the mortgage and the real estate background. That's a lot of training. What in the... Okay, let's condense it. We're not going to have an 8-hour podcast, all the listeners, I promise you. Let's condense it. Give me some highlights. Let's... Top 10 things, top 5 things. You tell me. What if somebody comes in and you walk into a house, what's the first thing you're looking at?
Okay, well, I would say I usually start my classes with what home staging is not. It's not decorating. I'm not going in to decorate somebody's house. I think that's a big misconception people have. Decorating for one person is not what I'm doing. I'm trying to appeal to a mass of buyers that are walking through the door. So if you get nothing else from this, staging is not decorating today.
Staging is not decorating, and that was going to be a question. I had it written down in my notes already. Really, kind of before we get into the top 10 tips or the top, I don't know what tips we're talking about here. We'll number them and figure it out. Tell me the biggest difference. What is the biggest difference? Since you teach this, what's the biggest difference between staging and decorating?
Well, staging to sell is different than staging to dwell. When we live in our homes, we personalize them, we fill them with stuff we love. I would not call my home staged. I live in my property, but I'm not selling it. When we go to sell, it becomes a whole different ballgame, and we're trying to highlight the assets that our property has, from architectural details to beautiful granite, the flow with floors. Anything that's cheaper than what your home has to offer and that the buyer is buying, in my opinion, should be removed from their eyes. Removing objections is key. So I go in and I look at the home through a buyer's eye perspective and also from the photographer's lens perspective, because obviously photo styling and getting homes online beautifully photographed is also part of that. We don't need to get into all of that today because that's a whole other podcast for you.
Yes.
So it's decorating for one when you live in your property, but it's decorating for many when we're selling our property, or staging for many when we're selling our property. And for me, I'd like to say also is that staging is not for the seller. Staging is actually for the buyer.
Okay. Elaborate just a little bit, although I think I know where you're going with that.
Well, staging, we're appealing to a buyer. It's like you walk into a store. I usually actually use the analogy with Coke. Coca-Cola has campaigns that they want you to buy a 75-cent can of Coke, but they will spend billions of dollars in order to get you to like their soda or purchase their soda. Have you seen the new campaign where they've got names on their cans?
Sure.
Okay, so you're out buying 10 cans of Ashley soda for 75 cents because you like that campaign. Well, we're going to campaign and market your property in a way that 10 buyers walk in. We want all 10 to make an offer on that property. So if it comes down to having to pack up small collectible items, let's say you collect turtles, and they're everywhere. If that becomes the idea of what people are saying throughout the home, they'll remember your turtles, but they won't remember what they're actually there to purchase. So it's actually staging it through the buyer's eyes. It's not for the seller. Does that make sense?
My pen is burning as I'm writing the notes here.
Come take my 8-hour class.
Yes. Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay. So one of the things I see on your Twitter account is that you do call yourself the couch whisperer.
Mm-hmm.
What is a couch whisperer?
Well, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek way of saying, it's almost house therapy for many people. Buying and selling is very emotional. We all know that. We love our homes. And sometimes it's not a good situation that people are selling in. So I need to come in with an eye and discerning temperament of not everyone's going to be wanting to do this for whatever reasons, financial, job loss, death in a family, whatever it might be. But I need to help convert them to understand the importance of the psychology behind buying a property, buying and selling a home. So the couch whispering part is kind of, again, a tongue-in-cheek way of saying there is psychology involved in this, and both on the buying and the selling side. So it's a soft way of kind of getting them on board with the process of why I'm there.
Okay. All right. Do you see, guys, I don't know how Texas is. Is there still a lot of distressed properties, or are you still seeing a lot of those there?
I work with investors. That's a different market, and I think the market's picked up so much here that I think investors are having a hard time even finding properties to purchase at this point. But when they do, and I work with several who will not list even their vacant rehab properties without being staged and professionally photographed. And in their case, they're finding multiple offers at or over asking price, some at 5 or 10% over asking, in markets that aren't commanding that. So this is not just about sticking a sign in the yard, even in the seller's market. Yes, people will come in certain price points, but is it the best price for the most people?
Okay. So 5 to 10%. Oh, wow. That's some good numbers, especially if the market's not commanding that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's kind of walk through some of the things. I mean, I can obviously you can do a quick Google search and find out the first thing that seems to be on everybody's staging blog is clutter.
Yeah, those are buzzwords. You know, clutter, depersonalize, neutralize. I think you can go too far in some cases. Yes, we want to remove clutter, but we don't want to strip a house bare. So there's a certain level you don't want to cross as far as removing everything. For me, I use a good analogy, and it's an easy visual. Anything smaller than a cantaloupe, I pack. I tell them to pack. So it's a way to avoid, do I need to pack this, or this? Is it smaller than a cantaloupe? Yes, then pack.
Okay. There's a great tip, listeners. If it's smaller than a cantaloupe, pack it. Okay. What about self-portraits? I know that there's a couple of rules of thumb there that says pull all your self-portraits down because you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for the buyer, like you said earlier. Are you the same philosophy?
Well, tastefully done black and white portraits that aren't over the top. Gallery walls should come down. I'm not opposed to leaving some photos out. My big thing for family portraits with children, even names on walls, for me is security. And that's one area that I think most people don't consider. We're inviting complete strangers into our home. They know your school district. They have your address. They know where the bedrooms are that your children sleep in. We don't need to blast their faces and their names. And not that everybody's creepy in the market to do this, but it's an open invitation to people who we may not, or we don't know. And for security reasons alone, I would say remove the family photos, especially with children.
That's a fantastic point right there. I've heard the term, and I don't understand it as much, but you know what it mean when I say furniture groupings?
I haven't heard the term grouping, but to place furniture in a way that's pleasing, that's conversational, that it doesn't impede traffic. So we do use certain principles as far as staging when furniture arrangement is implemented. Most people tend to push everything up against walls in a room, and we have way too much stuff, of course. But floating furniture in a space, anchoring it with a rug, those are all things that a stager can address as far as proper placement when staging the sell.
All right. Lighting. I know that's a big one for me.
That is
something that.
A lot of people
elaborate, please.
A lot of people don't have lamps for some reason, especially in master bedrooms. But there should be at least 3 corners of a room or in the room lit as ambient lighting, overhead lighting, and task lighting. But most people will just turn on a fan, and I'll tell you, I hate fan lights for showings. I hate them for photos. They feel like an interrogation room to me. They're not pleasing in most cases. They're very stark. Table lamps, floor lamps, at least in 2 to 3 corners of the room, help illuminate and make the home feel warmer. So go out and get yourself some lamps, people, because most lamps are too small. My rule of thumb for a table lamp, even in the bedroom, is if you're sitting on the couch, the base of the lampshade itself should come to your chin. That's a table lamp.
The base of the okay, come to the chin.
Of the shade. So it's not a little task light that you sit on your desk. It's a half a floor lamp almost size. So for a bench light.
And I have heard that when you get those lamps to not significantly but strategically up the wattage of the bulbs.
Yes, if you can. I mean, don't overdo it to where you're going to cause a fire. The limit on most lamps is 100 to 150, I think. But the 3-way lights are nice, too, so depending on the time of day you're going to be showing the property. Put them on timers. If you're not going to be tall, and a lot of people object to leaving things on, but there's a warm and inviting feel when somebody walks into the space, and they will make the decision on the purchase or not of the property within the first few minutes of walking through the door. You know, you have a feel of whether you're going to purchase that property or not.
Okay. And yeah, I can vouch for that completely.
With your clients?
Yeah, it's definitely with my clients, and then, you know, with me personally. I know when we just bought our new home, and I think my wife had made that decision before we even made it past the kitchen. She loved it. She'd already fallen in love with the place. So I know as you're falling in love, or even as you're looking as an investor, we know what we're looking for when we walk in the door.
Right. And there's another point with that. When you walk in a door, when you stand there, and do this in your own home, I do this in class, stand in the entryway of your home. What do you see? How many rooms do you see? Or even hints of rooms that you see? In my own home, I have 4 rooms I can actually see from my front door. That's your first impression. So your eyes are sweeping through, and this is a buyer who's willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to purchase this place. What is it that they're looking at when they come in?
Right. Okay. Wow. I get asked this question a lot. What about painting? Should you paint a room? Should you paint a house before it goes on the market?
Well, it depends on what it's painted as now. If you've got a lot of personal colors, bold choices that aren't really in line with what most buyers are looking for, then the mantra of, you know, the builder beige, the go to neutral tones, that really does work. And I have to say, most people are afraid of paint. They overestimate the cost that it will cost them to paint a room. If it's one room and it's a secondary bedroom, I generally don't have my clients paint those, because as kids, they're going to want to change colors anyway. But if it comes down to a purple striped master bedroom, we definitely want that painted. A whole white home, you know, adding color with decor can help. But for a general rule of thumb, in most markets, traditional homes, a neutral tone, beigey color works. And most people can move in, it's move-in ready, you can sell it as freshly painted, and it goes with most anyone's home decor.
Okay. All right. There's we're going to change gears for just a second. There's a term going around, and it seems to be an emerging business. You've got the education from the association, but I have seen a lot about virtual staging. Can you tell us a little bit about that and your thoughts on it?
Well, yes, I have thoughts on that.
I figured you might.
You know, so have a virtual rendering of a space of what it may look like. I can understand someone who needs that as far as a visualization. Let's say it's a builder with a multi-unit condo building. We see virtual renderings all the time in home builders' showrooms, and we can get an idea of what a home looks like. But online, having that virtually staged MLS photo, to me it kind of sets up the same disappointment as a vacant property would showing online. When you walk into the space, if it is empty and those virtual photos brought you in because they thought it was going to be beautifully adorned, it's the same principle. In context of the space, most people don't have the imagination to see that their furniture will fit or how furniture placement needs to be. It was great to get them in the door, but is it doing the same, you know, is it doing its justice by helping them see how the home will work for them? There's an agent in Houston. His name is Greg Nino. If you Google search virtual staging Greg Nino, it made like national news. He had a horrible experience with a virtually staged property, which showed nothing like the home was represented online. So there's a good story behind that. So I'd say use it wisely, judiciously. I don't think every property should use virtual staging.
Okay. All right. I think the argument was that the purpose was to try and get them in the door, and since well over 96.2% of buyers start their search online, I guess it was just an economical decision.
For some it is, and I would dare say it works in some cases, depending on the price point of property, how the home feels when you walk in. I think there's room for every type of innovation as far as selling a home goes, but this is a face-to-face kind of business. This is a tangible product that they're purchasing. It's kind of like, you know, online gaming. You're playing with people you don't meet, or you become characters that you're not really. So that's not the real world. We live in homes. You know, we don't live in virtual worlds.
Right. That's a great analogy right there. Okay. Since we talk about an economical reason, what is a normal, let's say a 3-2, and I know this is a Dallas market, so it's going to be different, here in Florida than it is in Texas or in California or in New York, whatever, but a typical 3-bedroom, 2-bath, I don't know. Am I out of a range there if I say it's going to sell between $150 and $200? I'm assuming there's some neighborhoods there that do that.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about an occupied home or a vacant property?
A vacant property. We'll start there. Okay. A vacant property. What is something like that going to run a customer to stage?
Well, I can give you a range because, like you said, in every market it's going to be different. There are some staging companies that keep their own inventory as far as furniture goes. Some rent from outside sources, like national furniture rental companies like Court. I could tell you for the $150,000 to $200,000 range, for a 3-2, you probably only want to do the key rooms. So secondary bedrooms in my market are usually not done. So key rooms would include the formals, the family, the kitchen, and the master bedroom. And those price points, they're probably looking about 1 to 1.5% of the list price of the home for a 3-month term to rent, and there are minimums. There's a lot of moving parts to vacant properties, and I think it's really important for a client to call staging companies directly and get this information directly from them because not everyone does it the same. So for me to give you a range here in Texas, for that same property with the square footage in California might be $400,000 or $500,000, depending on the market. I wouldn't be able to tell you what a California stager would charge you, for that market.
What would be the questions that they should ask if they call the stager? What are some of the questions they should ask?
Well, on their website, the stager's website should have some information, general information about this type of service. Directly, questions to ask are. Tell them you have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, like you said, would like to stage all of it or key rooms, and let them explain to you how they would work that. If the furniture comes from an outside source, do they keep their own furniture? Do accessory rentals come from your company, or are they from an outside source? Do we need to purchase accessories? Is there a minimum monthly rental term for the rental of these items? Is there a staging fee associated with the installation of these items? The vacants are, for me, as far as a staging company goes, if you haven't been doing this for a while, that's the most challenging aspect of trying to get the right budget and pricing for your client. I generally do it by phone, and if they're agreeable to the general ballpark estimate that I give them, I will actually go into the property, take photos, notes, and measurements, and provide them with a proper proposal. And there's no surprises after they've gotten the proposal.
Okay. I know that before we even started, you had talked about a business, a joint, I don't know if it's a joint venture or just a partnership you have with a photographer, because you had said that a lot of people, or you see success when you do your staging and then you bring in a professional photographer, and you almost discouraged not doing them combined. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yes, because good staging looks bad with bad photos. I don't care how well the house shows. Poor photos represent the home poorly online. And like you said, was it 96.2% of buyers are shopping online first? Those photos are key. Now, we're not in partnership, but he is an affiliate that I could not do my job without. Getting the services of a professional photographer on your affiliate line as far as real estate goes, whether you're a stager or a realtor, a builder, is key. Because for me, again, those photos online are driving traffic, price, location, condition. They're dismissing houses online based on poor photos. The house may look great in person, but if those photos aren't stellar, a lot of folks don't have the time to waste to go in and take a look at it if they feel it's not representing quality online.
Okay. When you walk in and do that final proposal, is it you have included your photographer services as well, or do you not? Or
in some cases I do, just because if the investor or realtor isn't working with a professional photographer at this point, I always offer the services of my photographer. They pay that themselves. I don't underwrite it or put it on my contract. I just want to make sure that they have access to quality photos. Many agents do have professionals on staff too, or no one that they can call. But I still see, and I don't know if you see this, Shane, is there are so many poor quality photos still representing online that, for me, a realtor has to have some skin in the game, and paying for those photos is part of that marketing expense, to get the reward of the sale.
Absolutely. I have a listing right now that's $2.8 million, and somebody took a listing up the road that's 2.2, and I'm pretty sure they used their Android to take the photos.
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah. No, I had the professional photographer go out. That's just, like you said, that's part of the marketing. So that was the vacant part. Let's talk about somebody that is living there. That you've got a realtor that called you, and they're taking a listing for a property that's living there. What's the process now?
Well, every property that's occupied starts with a home staging consultation. That's actually my number one requested service, and this is one area that I think a lot of realtors don't even realize is available. Occupied property consultations are usually up to a 2-hour walkthrough with your client, and they will hear firsthand from the exterior to the interior what needs to be done to get that home ready for market and for photos. Because I've mentioned before, I look at the home to a buyer's eye perspective and the photography lens for those MLS photos. And I can share information with the home seller that actually helps them do the work themselves. In most cases, I would say at least 60% of the time, they can do all the work themselves without me having to step foot back inside that property. It's the most cost-effective service a home stager can offer, and it's the most bang for your buck. So
okay.
Starts with consultation. If they need any additional services, there's, couple hours, half day, full day staging services available that the stager can actually use what they own. They can offset with accessories if they want to bring those in. We mentioned lamps earlier, artwork if they may not have it. But occupied homes are a hugely underserved market because I don't believe clients understand that this is actually something we can do. They think staging is for high-end vacant properties. It's for all homes. A $50,000 condo to a $2 million mansion. It's for every home and every price point.
Okay. All right. So just oh, wow. I didn't think about that. A consultation walkthrough.
Well, and there's two sides to that, too. For me, I do a verbal walkthrough where the client takes the notes. That's called a walk and talk. Other stagers may take photos. They'll take their own notes, and they'll provide them with a written consultation after the initial meetup. And I will also provide those as well. I just don't love to write, and I think clients are very able to do that, and it's more cost-effective for them to take the notes. But actually, I think it has them, buy into what's being done when they're actually writing this information down. We're talking about it, and they're understanding the need to do it. There's nice to-dos, and then there's the have-to-dos, and we prioritize what to focus on for selling. Will it make or break the sale if you don't do this? Will you get a return on that investment if you decide to do X, Y, or Z? And if you don't do X, Y, or Z, be prepared to price the home accordingly. Because that's one area, too, as a stager. Now, I don't price the homes. I don't know the comps. But I do know that there's ranges in neighborhoods from a low, mid-range to high as far as the price per square foot. If a client is willing to do certain things that the Joneses did across the street and they got the highest price in the neighborhood, well, keep up with the Joneses and do what they've done. If you're not willing to do the things that they've done, you need to be willing to understand that the price per square foot is going to reflect that. And in many cases, that price per square foot is even asked for less if the buyer perceives it to be double the work or more work than needs to be done. Buyers just magically somehow overestimate the cost of everything when it comes to buying a house. Do you find that?
I do. Matter of fact, one of the requirements that I have for all of my sellers, if they want to enter some of my guaranteed programs, is they must get a home inspection done.
I love that. Love that.
And I'm surprised more people don't do it. I've told the listeners that before. It's almost like playing poker, but getting to look at the buyer's hand before you bet.
Absolutely.
Because the biggest negotiating point is always the home inspection. So, I'm almost, after this conversation, I'm seriously considering, our owner-occupied stuff and even our vacant stuff, maybe doing a consultation, not just a home inspection, but with a stager as well, because it's an arena I haven't utilized as much. It strikes, just as an industry, I'll tell you how I look at it and how I have looked at it in the past, and how a lot of folks that I work with, it's almost like a commodity. And maybe there's just a re-education that needs to be done there that, hey, it's not. I have had stuff staged, and I have always sold higher. But I've always thought about it at about the $500,000 mark.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to the $500,000 and higher mark.
It's not a luxury. And Barbara Corcoran was our keynote speaker at our RISA convention last year, or this past year. We all know who Barbara Corcoran is, correct?
Absolutely. I know who Barbara Corcoran is.
She was one of the early adopters of staging. I mean, she's a real estate mogul and just a woman I admire. But it used to be a nice to have. It's a must have, according to Barbara. And we're so thrilled that she's one of the early backers of the staging industry. It's just stripped down as pure and simple marketing. You can price it right. You can photograph it well. But if the buyer's emotional buy-in to the property is not there when they get there, it's not working. So it's so crucial to me that at the front end, we're the aesthetic inspectors, if you will. I wrote a blog about that. We can bring the offers to the table, and that home inspection at the tail end will get them to the close. So I'm so thrilled to hear that you recommend that free-list home inspection, because that is something I would recommend. And if I notice things that I'm not an inspector, and I'm not going to be able to tell you if that crack in the wall's foundation or it's just crack in the wall, right. I think it's really key to get that done on the front end, because you can get all the offers you want. If it doesn't go to close, it doesn't make a hill of beans.
Absolutely. Okay, well, wow, that's a whole lot of information. Really. If some people want to get in touch with you, how do they do it?
How they do it? They can look me up online, homestarstaging.com. The Real Estate Staging Association is also online for stagers in your own market. I'm here to share that too. Is Google search home staging in your city. You should have some stagers come up. I'd interview them by phone. Have them meet you for coffee if you've never worked for one. But online, every stager should have some online presence, at least through a website.
Okay. And if I have a business card on somebody I bumped in and they really don't have a website, are you really going to take them seriously as a stager?
At this point of the game, I wouldn't. Back in 2006, even then, I had a very rudimentary website, but there's no excuse for not having a website. There's so many free resources out there. It's your business card today, so I think it's important. And it's a visual business. We're in that field of advertising a product, so our companies need to represent that as well. Right.
Do you mind if I put out your Twitter handle?
Absolutely not.
All right. It's at HomeStarStaging on Twitter. Make sure you give Karen a tweet. Tell her thank you. Any parting thoughts?
Well, again, if you're seeking a home stager just to get some information from, make sure you give them a call. Just find out how they work, how they can help you. I've always been of the mindset to help someone else before I expect them to help me. And as I mentioned before, the stageucation part, I think there's still a lot of misinformation about our industry and what we can do. But I feel like we should be an affiliate and a team member to every real estate agent and every office in the country. And I'm hopeful that through educating audiences like yours, I appreciate the opportunity to do that we can spread the message and kind of squash any misconceptions about what we do and help sell more property.
Absolutely. Well, Karen, thank you so much. I know the audience is glad that the stageucator came on for a visit. And if you don't mind, I'd like to keep your number around just in case we do a follow-up, because who knows, if I start getting some comments on this, we might have to do a Q&A. Would that be all right?
That'd be awesome. I'd appreciate it.
All right. Karen, thank you so much for coming on. If you guys want to find this episode online, it's realestatemoneyandmore.com/staging. Again, that's realestatemoneyandmore.com/staging.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. I hope you picked up a few things and how staging can help you sell your property for a maximum profit. Thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you next week.